So figured I'd kind of jump into a random topic that's, partly serious, partly a joke, partly just festive and funny. But the story of Rudolph, just like a story that you kind of, you hear, you probably heard it a million times. However many years old you are, you've heard it that many times because you hear it every Christmas. You heard the story, you've seen the movies, whatever. But I definitely find that sometimes we miss the meaning behind a story. It's fictional. It's a fictional story, so we think that the story doesn't have truth to it because it's fiction. So I think it's kind of funny is like when we take things a little too literally, we miss the truth within things sometimes, right? So, the story of Rudolph has meaning to it. It's not just a random Christmas story necessarily, right? The song starts out with, there's, Donner and Dancer and whatever. Who else? Nobody remembers the rest of their the reindeer name. They remember Rudolph, right? Because he went down in history. But do you recall the most famous reindeer of all? But, it's like Rudolph had a shiny nose. Most thought it was a vascular problem, but it wasn't. It was a symbol. It was a symbol of how different he was. Donner and Dasher, they bullied him. They, and Prancer and Vixen and Cupid, they would all just tag along, of course, just, trying to blend in, conform with the other one, so they all start picking on him. Even Blitzen was his good friend, and I'm sure he turned his back on him and betrayed him, just like what happened to Jesus. He probably would have crucified him too, burned him at the stake, because he had a different nose. And then, of course, like Greta Thunberg probably even castigated him for using too much energy with his nose, It's like, too much energy. Maybe I'm getting a little carried away here. But, he didn't conform, and they all hated him for it. Rudolph was a dissident. He was different than everybody else. If you're different and you're a dissident like Rudolph, maybe you got to be rude. That's probably where he got his name, Rude, and Dolph. Like, he was probably related to Dolph Lundgren, So, he had big balls. Rudolph had big balls to stand on his own and to let his nose shine brightly. When everyone made fun of him, he didn't let it bother him. They're bullying him and making fun of him. He could have retreated from society. He could have ran away. He could have disappeared into the hills like the Grinch. You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. You really are an eel. He could have, tucked his tail and ran away. He could have, he could have conformed with the rest of them. He could have got some purple hair and a septum ring, to match with everybody else so that he fit in, But he didn't. He stood on his own 2 feet. 4 feet, and he embraced that he was different. He embraced that he wasn't a conformist. He wasn't just like everybody else. Santa eventually came, and he needed that. He needed somebody different. He needed something, he needed somebody that could shine their way through the darkness, carve a new path. And nobody else could do that but Rudolph, right? Because Rudolph thought differently. He was different. He was different than everybody else. He wasn't a conformist. He wasn't just like everybody else, just fitting in. And I think, that story goes to tell you, like, embrace your differences. Like, stand up for what you believe. Don't just kind of hide your beliefs and shy away from the world, trying to present this outward appearance that you're just like everyone else. No, don't worry about, conforming and fitting in. Like, don't fit in. Sometimes it's better to not fit in. What the word special means. I mean, the word special, I think, has lost all meaning. It's a platitude that we call everybody special and everybody's this and that. And if everything's special, then nothing's special. But my point is, the story has meaning, right? And it's important to embrace kind of the truth that is built into fictional stories. Be like Rudolph. Don't be like all the rest of the reindeer. Light your own way through the darkness. Embrace the story. Make your own story. Carve your own path.